He is a cold-blooded and ruthless killer, a man who acted with premeditated savagery when he killed two unarmed policewomen. Today, the families of PC's Fiona Bone and Nicola Hughes wept in court as Dale Cregan was told that he will spend the rest of his life in prison.
Cregan initially denied what he had done, but as the 4-month trial progressed, he began to change his story. First, he admitted he had killed PC's Nicola Hughes and Fiona Bone. Then, weeks later, he confessed to the murders of father and son David and Mark Short. Today, others who helped him with the Short murders were convicted by the jury.
This evening, in the special edition of North West Tonight, we can tell you the full story for the first time. Let's begin by joining our chief reporter, Dave Guest, who is outside Preston Crown Court. Dave.
Well, yes, Roger, this has been a long and harrowing trial for many of those involved, but it has to be said Dale Cregan had the air of a man without a care in the world this afternoon. He sauntered back into the dock of courtroom number 1 at 4 o'clock to hear his sentence, and as he waited for the judge to come, he was laughing and joking with others in the dock. Well, when Mr Justice Holroyd began to give his sentences out, he said he'd observed that Cregan and many in the dock had shown little sign of remorse during the weeks of this trial. He said there were people driven by self-interest. He said a conviction for murder inevitably attracted a life sentence, but life meant life only in exceptional circumstances. Now, others in the dock today who were convicted of the murders of David and Mark Short were given life sentences and told they'd serve minimum terms of between 33 and 35 years. But the judge said Cregan was one of those exceptional circumstances. He received a whole life tariff, which means he will never be released from prison. Dale Cregan has just turned 30. He has a long history of violence and offences going back into his teens. He lost his eye during a barroom brawl in Thailand. This time last year, few outside his circle heard the name of Dale Cregan, but it was a name that was to become infamous across the land.
Hyde Police Station, September 18th, 2012. Britain's most wanted fugitive is handing himself in. Dale Cregan tells a stunned officer, "I'm wanted by the police and I've just done 2 coppers." The 2 coppers were police constables Fiona Bone and Nicola Hughes. They were lying dead in the garden of this house just a few miles away in Mottram. Cregan had lured them here by dialling 999.
Police emergency.
Someone just threw a big concrete slab through my back window and ran off.
Cregan called himself Adam and even referred to the police operator as mate.
Right, I'll get an officer up there, have a look round and see if they can see anybody similar, and then they'll come and see you. All right, Adam?
How long would it take, do you know, roughly?
Because it's just happened, it's gone in on the priority, so that's within the hour, certainly.
All right then, thanks very much.
Okay.
I'll be waiting.
Cregan ended that phone conversation with the words, "I'll be waiting." And he was, with a fully loaded Glock pistol and a hand grenade. He'd chosen this house specifically because it offers such a clear view of the road. He could see anyone as they were approaching. So, as the 2 officers walked towards the front door, he opened fire. They didn't stand a chance. Fiona attempted to deploy her taser, but it was no use. Nicola was shot repeatedly as she lay on the ground. Dale Cregan fired 30 shots in as many seconds. Then, as a parting gesture, he lobbed the hand grenade at the fallen officers.
Fiona and Nicola were beat bobbies answering a routine call. They were not armed.
And I just heard bang, 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 like, you know, shots, and then a massive bang at the end. And I heard a woman crying out in pain. It was scary.
So scary, in fact, that this woman asked us not to reveal her identity. Others who witnessed what happened here that day still can't believe what they saw.
I think that I was next door cleaning the windows and the guy was still inside. You know, Britain's most wanted. You just don't expect it. It was like some of a Hollywood scene. People running around, panicking, you know, in shock. And the one lady that said to me, he said, "I think it's him. I think he's done it, him with the grenade."
Cregan dropped the empty pistol, then took a car and headed straight to Hyde Police Station, just a few minutes' drive away. He was to tell police they'd been hassling his family, so he'd done the same to theirs. The police knew they had the culprit. At a news conference, the chief constable made it plain he believed Cregan was the killer.
He has deliberately done this in an act of absolutely cold-blooded murder.
But those comments and the resulting headlines drew criticism from those who said he'd appeared to prejudge any trial. Indeed, having told the police he'd killed their colleagues, Cregan then told the jury he hadn't. So the case was underway. Cregan's daily trip to Preston Crown Court was enveloped in the tightest of security. The convoy became a routine sight for commuters on the M61. The court itself a fortress with armed police on duty inside and out. For the families of the fallen officers, there was the trauma of listening to the harrowing details of their final moments. Then, on day 4 of his trial, Cregan surprised everyone. He admitted killing the 2 police officers. But although he'd admitted to the atrocity in Abbey Gardens, the story was far from over. Nicola Hughes and Fiona Bone were not his first victims. Cregan had killed before.
Because, of course, he had already murdered father and son David and Mark Short. Well, Mr Justice Holroyd said this afternoon that the crime of murder ends one life but ruins many more. And some of those whose lives had been ruined by Cregan's crimes gave their reaction outside court.
Our lives have been shattered. I will never be the same again. To have a child taken away from you in such a cruel and meaningless way is without doubt the worst thing any parent can imagine.
No sentence served by the people who murdered my Dave and Mark will ever be long enough to reflect the pain and suffering caused by their loss. I miss Dave and Mark so much, my heart aches for them every waking hour.
The murders of all 4 victims, Mark Short, David Short, Police Constables Fiona Bone and Nicola Hughes, were nothing short of executions, planned, premeditated and cold-blooded.
And of course that trail of executions eventually led to the court here in Preston. But the trail of death actually began in the Greater Manchester town of Droylsden just over a year ago.
Okay, Dave, thanks very much. Yes, Dale Cregan's first victim was Mark Short, killed here at the Cotton Tree pub in Droylsden last May. CCTV captured the gunman running into the pub. 7 shots were fired. Mark Short, an amateur boxer with a history of criminal violence, died. 3 other people were hurt. Dale Cregan, of course, the man with the gun, but Luke Livesey and Damien Gorman also played a part in the murder. Cregan and some of his co-accused then lay low in Thailand, flying business class and living in 5-star luxury. On their return to Manchester in June, they were arrested by the police, but released on bail pending further inquiries. By early August, Cregan had disappeared again, this time to Bowness in the Lake District with his family. Then on August the 10th, Cregan resurfaced to kill again. His next victim was David Short, Mark Short's father. Cregan, Anthony Wilkinson and Jermaine Ward murdered him in his own home in Clayton. He was chased through the house and shot many times. Cregan then threw a grenade onto him. A short while later, Cregan launched a grenade at another house before going on the run. Mohammed Imran Ali organised a hideout in Yorkshire. And despite a £50,000 reward offered for his capture, Cregan wasn't found for more than a month, until the day he made a 999 call and lured police officers Fiona Bone and Nicola Hughes to their deaths.
Well, one man who comforted PC Nicola Hughes as she lay dying has told North West Tonight that what he saw will live with him forever. Still traumatised by what happened, he asked us to conceal his identity, but he agreed to speak exclusively to the BBC and describe to us the events, those terrible events of that awful September morning.
All of a sudden, heard some bangs, thought it was fireworks, went out the front door, saw my neighbour jumping over the fence, so I jumped over the fence, and then we saw somebody running up the road shouting that they'd been shot. My neighbour, he started phoning the police. I saw Nicola and Fiona. I saw Fiona under the window. She wasn't moving or anything, she was just lay under the window, but I could see that Nicola was near the gate and she was breathing. So I just went and sat with her. Well, don't really know what else was going on. I just stayed with her and told her everything was going to be all right. You don't know what to do. There's nothing you can do. But I just, She's not much older than my daughter. What gets me the most is I was with Nicola. Fiona was under the window and there was nobody there for her. I didn't know whether she was dead, but I know now that she was, but I didn't at the time, but I couldn't go to her because I didn't want to leave Nicola. It's still in your head that you did nothing, but you do get told you did what you could. There was nothing you could have done. It doesn't really matter, does it? They're still gone.
32-year-old PC Fiona Bone had been a police officer for 5 years. She grew up in Port St Mary on the Isle of Man. Before work, on the morning of her death, she'd been sorting out invitations for her civil partnership.
Nicola Hughes was 23. Growing up in the village of Diggle in Saddleworth, she had dreamed of joining the police. She'd served with them for 3 years when she was killed on duty.
More than 50,000 people, most of whom who'd never met the two police officers, signed books of condolence, both online and in police stations and churches. And many were alongside hundreds of police officers paying their respects at the women's funerals, when Manchester stood still to remember its loss.
Clearly this is one of the darkest days in the history of Greater Manchester Police.
A week ago today, the world was deprived of two wonderful human beings. The police service lost two of its rising stars, and the community lost two of its dedicated servants.
Regardless of whether they knew her, I think everyone's feeling the same and everyone wants to do her proud today, really.
A life cut short by the forces of evil at such a young age.
Well, Nicola and Fiona were police officers, but they were also daughters. Tonight, their families remember the day they died and the loved ones that they lost.
Nicola had a really wicked sense of humour. She always saw the fun side of life. She was determined to join the police, and that's what she went out and obviously did.
Do you want to make a difference?
Make a difference. Yeah, she did want to make a difference. Yeah. Ultimately, I think she has.
She was a lovely, bubbly person, and we'll always have that in our hearts. And it's hard to imagine she's gone. We first saw it on the 1 o'clock news that two people had been injured. I think it was in Mottram, and just about thinking, you know, we'll give Fiona a quick ring and see what's happening, when there was a knock on the door and there's two policemen there.
I was driving home from work and I had a call from a DCI who wanted to speak to me. He was waiting at my home, so I think the minute he says, I'm from the police and I need to speak to you, and I'm outside your house, that's when you start to realise there's something seriously wrong.
We're getting used to it because of the nature of the death and the trial and the prolonged, drawn out agony of it all. We're hoping now it's finished, we'll sort of begin to recover.
The outpouring of sort of public grief that has helped us to know that kind of we're not on our own. But in terms of kind of dealing with it in private, like you're saying, having that kind of private time, I still think that's yet to come.
I think as a parent, you're in that expectation that your children will be there for when you die.
To deliberately go, oh, I'm just going to kill a policeman today because I don't like them, it seems unreal. And it's a level of callousness and no empathy with anybody is beyond really my comprehension. He's taken my daughter from me. I can't forgive him for that, and there's nothing I can do about it either.
I don't think you could even give it justice or of how proud you are of Nicola for whatever she did, even now, for whatever she's still doing now.
All the things she did, she made me proud, and I really miss her every day.
The reflections of the families of Fiona Bone and Nicola Hughes. We'll have more on the conclusion of the Dale Cregan murder trial